Watch the exact moment Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's political career collapsed, shattered by 10 quiet words from Vice President JD Vance. She was still mid-laugh. It was a derisive, performative laugh she had perfected on the floor of the United States House of Representatives over 7 years. That was when Vice President JD Vance opened the manila folder he had not touched for 43 minutes. He lifted out a single piece of paper and said 10 quiet words that ended a 7-year career in American political combat. They sent you to fight. You sent them the bill. The laugh stopped. 2 pages slid off the witness table. They hit the marble floor of Senate Russell 325 with a soft, audible slap that the C-SPAN microphones picked up clearly enough. By the next morning, that single sound paper hitting marble in the same hearing room where Senator Sam Ervin had asked President Nixon's men what they knew and when they knew, it had been replayed approximately 41 million times. Chairman Tim Scott of South Carolina did not lift his gavel. House Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest of Mississippi closed the binder in front of him. 3 rows behind the witness table, a 4-year-old Puerto Rican woman from Corona, Queens, named Maria Vez, tightened her grip on the handles of a wheelchair, pushed up against the back of seat 3, and waited for the moment she had waited 11 months to see. If you have ever waited, really waited, for a member of the United States Congress to be looked in the eye, on the record, under oath, and asked to explain how she charged the working class for her dinners while she told them she was fighting oligarchy, smash that like button right now. Because it just happened on C-SPAN Live, in the most historic hearing room in the United States Capitol, and nobody in that room was ready for what Vice President Vance pulled out of his folder next. Senate Russell 325, the Kennedy Caucus Room, the same room where Senator Sam Ervin had questioned President Nixon's men in the summer of 1973, was not supposed to be where this happened. The Joint Task Force on Federal Campaign Finance Compliance had been formed 2 months earlier by bipartisan vote of the Senate Banking Committee and the House Ethics Committee. This occurred after 3 separate findings against a single sitting member of Congress had become impossible for either party to keep ignoring a House Ethics Committee report, a Federal Election Commission complaint, and a luxury hotel spending pattern that had reached the front page of the New York Post. The presiding officer was a man whose constitutional role nobody in the room had expected to see in this seat. Vice President JD Vance, Marine veteran, Yale Law graduate, author of Hillbilly Elegy. He was attending in 2 capacities as President of the Senate under Article 1, Section 3 of the Constitution, and as the Trump administration's newly designated fraud czar, a position the president had announced on Truth Social 19 days earlier. Representative Ocasio-Cortez had 3 options when the subpoena arrived at her Cannon office building suite: refuse and face contempt of Congress, plead the Fifth, or appear under oath. She chose to appear. Because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had not lost a televised confrontation with a Republican in 7 years of American political life, and she did not believe she was going to lose this one, particularly not to a vice president who had returned from Islamabad 10 days earlier after 21 consecutive hours of failed Iran negotiation without a single concession from the regime. She walked into Russell 325 at 9:48 inches the morning. She wore cream, the color she had worn for her 2018 primary victory speech, the color she always wore for moments she intended to win. At 10:02, Chairman Scott gavelled the hearing to order. At 10:09, she made the mistake that ended her. Chairman Scott's voice was even. He was a soft-spoken man, and he did not change for cameras. Madame Congresswoman, you are recognized for a 5-minute opening statement. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not place her hands on the witness table. She stood up. She rarely sat for opening statements. She had learned in November of 2017, in a Bronx church basement during her primary campaign against Joseph Crowley, that a woman who sits is a woman who can be ignored. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice President, with all due respect, though I note for the record that I am running short of it this morning, I want to begin by acknowledging the absurdity of this proceeding. I am a sitting United States Congresswoman from the city of New York. I have been brought here today by a Republican-controlled task force to be questioned by a vice president who, 10 days ago, returned from Islamabad, Pakistan, after 21 consecutive hours of failed negotiation with the Islamic Republic of Iran without obtaining a single concession from the regime. If the President of the United States believed that this vice president was capable of investigating fraud, sir, the President would not have sent him to Pakistan to fail. You served, Mr. Vice President, as a Marine in Iraq from 2005 to 2006. You served, sir, in public affairs. You were, by your own published account in your memoir, a journalist with a uniform. The men you stood beside in Al-Anbar province earned their scars in places you only wrote about. I have read your book, sir. You make the distinction yourself. I am only repeating it. She pivoted. She had practiced this pivot. You are a graduate of Yale Law School. You took $15 million from Mr. Peter Thiel, a venture capitalist who has stated on the public record that he no longer believes freedom and democracy are compatible. You wrote a memoir glamorizing the same generational poverty you have, since publication, voted to deepen by every measure available to you in this Congress. Your wife, Mrs. Usha Chilukuri Vance, is a corporate litigation attorney at the firm of Munger, Tolles, and Olson. You and she live in a 6,000-square-foot mansion in the East Walnut Hills neighborhood of Cincinnati, Ohio. The American taxpayer paid for the renovations to that mansion when the United States Secret Service moved its protective detail in. You are, sir, a hillbilly, the way I am, a fashion designer. Pause. She turned slightly toward the row of cameras. Childless cat ladies. Sir, that is what you called every woman in this country who has not yet borne a child to a man you would approve of. You said it on the public record in 2021, on the campaign trail. I am 36 years old, sir. I am childless. I am childless because I have decided not to bring a child into a country governed by men who believe the answer to a child not yet born is to deport his mother. She was building. The cadence was hers. Donald Trump is an extremist. The American people elected an extremist. And you, sir, you of all people, who in the year 2016 referred to Donald Trump as America's dictator in private text messages, later released by your own former friend, the Democratic state senator from the state of Georgia, Joshua McLaurin, are now the second in command to the man you once described as America's dictator. You are the most expensive purchase Mr. Peter Thiel has ever made, sir, and I am not going to be lectured by Peter Thiel's purchase about my campaign disclosures. She turned slightly toward Maria, and I will not pretend, Mr. Vice President, to be moved by the testimony of a witness who has been, let me be generous, invited to this hearing room by Republican operatives whose names I do not yet know, but whose intentions I am reasonably certain about. The misfortunes of one constituent of mine, however tragic, cannot be weaponized against the entirety of progressive policy by a Republican vice president who could not, in 21 hours of marathon negotiation, secure the release of a single American hostage from the city of Tehran. She returned to face the dais. I yield, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to your questions. I do not expect them to be honest. She sat down. The applause from the Democratic side of the room was absent. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts did not clap. Her pen had stopped moving 28 seconds into the opening statement. It was still stopped. Representative Mark DeSaulnier of California, the ranking Democrat on the House Ethics Committee, looked down at the table. Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as closest legislative ally, did not nod once during the speech. In the third row of observer seats, Representative Adriano Espaillat of New York, Dominican-born, formerly undocumented, the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the senior member of New York City's Latino congressional delegation, sat with his hands folded over a small, worn Bible his late father had given him in 1971. He closed his eyes for one full second. In the back row, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, 6 feet 8 inches tall, wearing for the first time in 18 months as a United States Senator a dark gray suit jacket he had purchased at Macy's in Pittsburgh 3 weeks earlier, specifically for this hearing, leaned forward and set both hands on his knees. On the Republican side, Chairman Tim Scott did not blink. Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming wrote one word on her notepad. Senator Katie Britt of Alabama looked down at her hands. Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska closed his binder. Senator Bill Hagerty of Tennessee leaned back. Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio, the man who had been sworn in to fill the Senate seat vacated by James David Vance, did not move. In row 4 of the observer seats, seat 3, Maria Vez did not look up. She had decided 3 weeks earlier, in the kitchen of her apartment at 3812 7th Street in Corona, Queens, that she was not going to look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez until the moment mattered. In seat 4 beside her sat her son, Hector Velez, 22 years old, Queens College sweatshirt, navy blue, with a small bleach stain on the right sleeve. Wheelchair. He could not stand. He could not turn his head fully to the right. His eyes were fixed on the seal of the United States of America, affixed to the wood paneling above the dais. He had not blinked that anyone in the room could tell in 11 minutes. Chairman Scott tapped his gavel once, very lightly. The Vice President of the United States is recognized for 7 minutes, by leave of this task force, in his joint capacity as President of the Senate and as the Special Coordinator for Federal Fraud Investigations. Vice President James David Vance did not stand. He had been told in a private briefing from the Senate parliamentarian the previous afternoon that the Vice President of the United States, when presiding in this room, did not need to. He placed both hands flat on the closed manila folder in front of him. He did not open the folder. His voice was the voice of a man who had grown up in a single-wide trailer in Middletown, Ohio, raised by his grandmother, Bonnie, gone to Ohio State University on the GI Bill after 4 years in the Marine Corps, gone to Yale Law School, and at the age of 31, written a memoir about the people who had taught him to be quiet when there was nothing useful left to say. He spoke slowly. He did not raise his voice. He had not raised his voice in a public proceeding in 3 years. Madam Congresswoman, I'm going to take some of what you said this morning, and I'm not going to fight you on it. I went to Yale Law School. I took money from Peter Thiel. My wife Usha works at Munger, Tolles, and Olson. We live in East Walnut Hills, Cincinnati. The Secret Service did renovate the entryway of our home when they moved in. I called Donald Trump America's dictator in 2016 in a private text message to my friend Josh McLaurin, who is now a Democratic state senator in the state of Georgia, and who released those texts to the press in 2024 because he thought they would hurt me. They did not. I served as a public affairs Marine. Ma-am. I was a journalist with a uniform. The men I served beside earned their scars in places I only wrote about. I have never claimed otherwise. The man I think about most often is a lance corporal named Dustin Lee, who lost his life to a dangerous device en route Tampa, north of Baghdad, on the 7th of October, 2006. I was not with him that day. I should have been. I have lived with that for 19 years. He paused. He did not raise his voice on the next sentence. I am not going to argue with you about Donald Trump, ma'am. I am not going to argue with you about Iran. I am not going to argue with you about Peter Thiel, or about my wife, or about my children, or about the year 2016. The American people, in November of 2024, sorted those questions out. They sent us here. You and me both. You from the Bronx, me from Middletown. What I'm going to ask you about, ma'am, is what they sent us to do. He did not open the folder. Sitting 4 rows behind you, ma'am, in row 4, seat 3, is a woman from Corona, Queens. Her name is Mrs. Maria Lourdes Velez. She was born in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. She came to the United States with her mother in 1976 when she was 5 years old. She has lived at 3812 7th Street in Corona, Queens, since 1983. She is a public school cafeteria worker at Public School 19, the Marino John Tett School on 48th Avenue, where she has worked for 22 years. She is your constituent, ma'am. She has been your constituent her whole life. She voted for you in 2018. She voted for you in 2020. She voted for you in 2022. She voted for you in 2024. The young man beside her in seat 4, in the Queens College sweatshirt, in the wheelchair, is her son, Hector. He is 22 years old. He has not been able to speak more than 3-word sentences since the 18th of May, 2025. I'll let Mrs. Velez tell her own story when her time comes. He paused. For now, ma'am, I want you to know. I know you saw her when you walked in this morning, and I know you saw her son, and I know you decided not to look. You don't have to defend the decision, ma'am. I am just naming it so we can begin. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's hand went to her stack of papers. It did not move them yet. Madame Congresswoman, on the 25th of July, 2025, the United States House of Representatives Committee on Ethics, composed of 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, chaired by Congressman Michael Guest of Mississippi, who is sitting to my right at this very table, voted unanimously, 10-0, to adopt a report concluding that you, quote, impermissibly accepted gifts associated with your attendance at the Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute Gala in September of 2021. Yes or no, ma'am? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The committee did not find that I knowingly violated rules. The committee found, yes or no, ma'am? Yes, you wore a custom-made gown to that gala, designed by a woman named Aurora James, the founder of a fashion label called Brother Vellies. The gown was white. Embroidered on the back in red lettering were 3 words, tax the rich. Yes or no? Yes. You brought your then partner, now your husband, Mr. Riley Roberts, with you to the gala. You did not pay for his admission. The complimentary ticket was provided by Vogue magazine and Condé Nast as a gift. The committee found that under House Rule 25, the acceptance of that complimentary ticket on his behalf was an impermissible gift to you in your official capacity, in violation of the gift rule. Yes or no? Yes. You did not pay the designer who made your gown, ma'am, until February of 2022, 5 months after the event. You did not pay your hairstylist's invoice until late February of 2022, after the agency representing the hairstylist sent your campaign committee a written notice that they would file a complaint with the United States Department of Labor against your campaign committee on the following business day. If the da-jam invoice was not paid. Yes or no, ma'am. The committee, my staff? Yes or no, ma'am. Yes. The committee in its report used a phrase, I want to read into the record. They said of your payments, quote, but for the Office of Congressional Ethics Investigation, several of these payments may not have been made at all. End quote. Yes or no? Ma'am? A long pause. Yes. The committee ordered you to make additional payments of approximately $3,000 in personal funds to compensate for the fair market value of certain gifts you received. Have you, ma'am, as of this morning, completed those payments? My chief of staff has. Madame Congresswoman, with respect, I'm a tax lawyer by training. If a hairstylist had to threaten the United States Department of Labor to get me to pay her invoice, ma'am, I would send her flowers and a check the next morning. You waited 8 months. You waited because somebody told you that Met Gala attendees do not pay for their dresses. The Met Gala does not have a House Ethics Committee. Ma'am, the United States House of Representatives does. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hand moved to square her papers. She squared them. The papers stayed on the table for now. Stop. Did you just hear that? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has spent 7 years on the House Financial Services Committee, accusing every Republican witness ever to sit in front of her of gaming the rules, just admitted under oath that she waited 8 months to pay for a Met Gala dress with the words, tax the rich on the back. And she only paid after a hairstylist threatened to call the Department of Labor on her. If that just hit you the way it hit me, drop one comment below. Type the words, tax the rich, TAXTHERICH, tax the rich. The slogan she wore on a borrowed dress, the dress she paid for 8 months late. Comment, tax the rich now, then come back. Because what Vice President Vance is about to pull out of his folder next is going to make the first 10 minutes look like a warm-up. Vice President Vance opened the manila folder. It contained 1 page. He did not read from the page. He did not lift it from the folder. He kept his hand on it. Madame Congresswoman, I want to ask you about a separate matter. On the 27th of March, 2026, 26 days ago, the National Legal and Policy Center, an independent ethics watchdog organization based in Falls Church, Virginia, filed a formal complaint with the Federal Election Commission and the House Office of Congressional Ethics. The complaint alleges that during calendar year 2025, your principal campaign committee, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Congress, made 3 disbursements, totaling $18,725 to a man named Dr. Brian W. Boyle. Did your campaign committee, pay Dr. Brian W. Boyle $18,725 during calendar year 2025? Yes. Were those payments classified in your quarterly FEC disclosures as, quote, leadership training and consulting? End quote? Yes, Dr. Boyle is a psychiatrist, ma'am. He practices at 165 Chestnut Street, Brookline, Massachusetts. According to his published practice biography on Psychology Today, he specializes in, quote, interventional psychiatry, including Spravato, ketamine, and transcranial magnetic stimulation therapy, end quote. He is described by his own marketing materials as, quote, a leading authority on ketamine therapy, end quote. Does Dr. Boyle, on his website, on Psychology Today, or in any public-facing material, advertise leadership training or consulting services? Mr. Vice President, mental health is, Madam Congresswoman, I agree with you. Mental health matters. The Beatitudes, and I am a Catholic, ma'am. I converted as an adult. I went through RCIA. The Beatitudes say, quote, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." End quote. I mourn. I have mourned. I have a mother, ma'am, who has been clean and sober for 12 years and 3 months as of this morning. I know about therapy. I know about the work it takes. The reason I am asking you this question, ma'am, is not because mental health does not matter. The reason I am asking you this question is because your donors paid for it. Federal election law, ma'am. Title II, United States Code, Section 439, a subsection B, prohibits the personal use of campaign funds. That is a black-letter rule. The NLPC alleges in its complaint that the $18,725 you paid to Dr. Boyle was, in fact, for personal therapeutic services for you or for members of your campaign staff. Yes or no? Ma'am, were those payments for therapy? The matter is under review by the FEC. Yes or no, ma'am? I cannot comment on an ongoing review. Vice President Vance did not change his expression. Madame Congresswoman, the American people watching this hearing this morning are about to learn a sentence that the lawyers in this room already know. The sentence, "I cannot comment on an ongoing review," is the sentence a person says when the answer is yes. He paused. He had not raised his voice. 3 payments, ma'am. $11,550 on the 10th of March, 2025, $2,800 on the 15th of May, 2025, $4,375 on the 1st of October, 2025, total $18,725. For comparison, ma'am, and I think this is important, the median household income in your congressional district, New York's 14th, is approximately $56,000 per year. You charged your campaign donors in 3 payments. Approximately 1/3 of the median annual household income in your own district to a ketamine specialist in suburban Boston, 3 months apart, 3 times in a single year, 3 times. Ma'am. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood up. She did not sit for fights. She had not sat for a fight since November of 2017. She raised her hand. Chairman Scott granted her the floor. Mr. Vice President, I am not going to apologize for receiving mental health care. I am not going to apologize for being a 6-year-old congresswoman who, in the year 2021, on the 6th of January, was nearly eliminated in her office in this very building, locked in a closet while a mob, encouraged by your now boss, searched for United States congresswomen through these corridors, looking for women to harm. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, sir. I have been treated for it. I am not ashamed of it. The American people are not ashamed of it. What you are doing this morning, sir, is shaming a victim of political violence for seeking the medical care she needed in the aftermath of an extremist unrest. And I want to know, Mr. Vice President, I want to know when the next one. 8-year-old Marine veteran from Middletown, Ohio, walks into a Veterans Affairs clinic in Cincinnati and asks for the same ketamine treatment that my donors paid for. Are you going to deny him? Are you going to call his treatment a misuse of funds? Or is mental health care only fraud, Mr. Vice President, when the patient is a brown woman from the Bronx who voted against your billionaire donors? She sat down. The room was silent. Chairman Scott did not gavel. He did not need to. She had landed it. It was real. It was a hit. Vice President Vance did not speak for 14 seconds. The 14 seconds were not the silence of a man who had nothing to say. They were the silence of a man who was deciding whether what had just been said deserved a response or only an acknowledgement. He chose acknowledgement. Madame Congresswoman, I was in Middletown last weekend, ma'am. I was visiting my mother. She is 60 years old. She has been clean since the 7th of January, 2014. She has a job. She has a small home she pays for herself. She has, every day of her life, every right to therapy. She also pays for it, ma'am, out of her own pocket, with money she earned. She does not bill her donors because she is not a member of Congress. The distinction is a small one, but it matters. He turned the page over. The other side of the page was now visible, and ma'am, for the record, since you raised the comparison, every Marine veteran from Middletown, Ohio, who walks into a Cincinnati Veterans Affairs clinic and asks for ketamine therapy receives that therapy from the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, not from a private psychiatrist in Brookline, Massachusetts, not in 3 quarterly installments coded as leadership training from the VA, free of charge to him, because we, the American people, owe him that through our taxes. He set the page back down. Now, ma'am, I want to read you something. Vice President Vance lifted the single page out of the folder and held it up for the C-SPAN cameras to see. The page was visible to the room. On the left side were 7 dates written in a column. On the right side, beside each date, were the names of 7 different hotels and restaurants. Madam Congresswoman, I want to read to you, on the public record, in the United States Senate, S. most historic hearing room, the same room where Senator Sam Ervin sat in 1973 and asked President Nixon S. men what they knew and when they knew it, a list of 7 dates. On each of these 7 dates in calendar year 2025, a woman named Mrs. Maria Lourdes, who is sitting in row 4, seat 3 behind you, called your district office at 88-08 43rd Avenue, Long Island City, Queens. The phone records were obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request to the Office of the Clerk of the United States House of Representatives, dated the 19th of February, 2026. The records are in front of me. They are public. On each of those 7 dates, ma'am, the call was received by a member of your Constituent Services staff. On each of those 7 dates, the call was logged in your office's intake system. On each of those 7 dates, ma'am, you did not return the call personally. Your office sent a form letter signed by a Constituent Services aide. The 7 form letters are also in front of me. They are also public. He read slowly. Each date, a hammer. Date 1, the 14th of March, 2025. Your campaign committee was billed $1,638 at the Hotel Vermont in Burlington, Vermont, that day. Date 2, the 22nd of May, 2025. Your campaign committee paid Dr. Brian W. Boyle $2,800 that week. Your campaign committee was simultaneously billed $2,318 at the Vidara Hotel and Spa in Las Vegas, Nevada. Date 3, the 8th of July, 2025. Your campaign committee was billed at the Hotel Palacio Provincial in San Juan, Puerto Rico. That month, date 4, the 26th of August, 2025. Your campaign committee paid the Coliseo de Puerto Rico $6,987.62 in venue rental that day. The same venue, ma'am, where you were photographed dancing in a private suite during a concert performed by the recording artist Bad Bunny 3 days earlier, on the 23rd of August. Date 5, the 1st of October, 2025. Your campaign committee paid Dr. Brian W. Boyle $4,375 that day. Same day, date 6, the 12th of November, 2025. Your campaign committee was billed at the Lansdowne Resort and Spa in Leesburg, Virginia. Date 7, the 4th of February, 2026. Your campaign committee paid Sushi Nas on Greenwich Avenue in Manhattan $150 per person for a 1-4-course tasting menu. He set the page down. Mrs. Velez was calling Ma'am to ask for your help with her son, Hector, 22 years old, sitting in row 4, seat 4 behind her, Queens College sweatshirt. He paused. Mr. Velez. Sir, would you? He stopped himself. Forgive me, sir. I forgot you can taunt. A long pause. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hand went to square her papers. The papers slid. 2 pages slipped off the polished mahogany edge of the witness table. They hit the marble floor of Russell 325. The slap of paper on marble was audible in the gallery. A C-SPAN microphone 4 meters away picked it up clearly. She watched them fall. She did not pick them up. Hector cannot stand. He cannot speak more than 3 words. His mother called the Congresswoman's office 7 times in 11 months. The Congresswoman was at a hotel in Vermont, at a sushi bar in Manhattan, at a Bad Bunny concert in San Juan, at a resort in rural Virginia, at a ketamine specialist's office in suburban Boston. 7 phone calls, 7 form letters, 0 personnel responses. If you have ever called your representative's office and gotten a form letter, share this video right now to 1 person. Right now. Your sister, your brother, the neighbor who owns the bodega on the corner. 1 person right now. Chairman Scott looked down at his agenda. The chair calls Mrs. Maria Lourdes Velez. Mrs. Velez, please come forward to the witness table. Maria stood up from row 4. She wheeled her son Hector up to the front of the witness area and parked his wheelchair beside the chair to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez right. She sat down in the chair. She did not look at the Congresswoman beside her. The clerk administered the oath. Her hand did not shake. Chairman Scott. Mrs. Velez, you are recognized for 2 minutes for an opening statement. Maria did not have notes. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice President, members of the task force. My name is Maria Lourdes Velez. I was born in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico, in 1971. I came to the United States with my mother in 1976 when I was 5 years old. I have lived in Corona, Queens, since 1976. I have lived at the same address, 3812 7th Street, since I was 12 years old. I am a public school cafeteria worker at Public School 19, the Marino Jontet School on 48th Avenue. I have worked there for 22 years. I have voted in every general election since 1992. I voted for Bill Clinton. I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Joseph Biden. I voted for the Congresswoman in 2018, in 2020, in 2022, and in 2024. On the 18th of May, 2025, my son Hector, 22 years old, a junior at Queens College, a biology major planning to take the medical college admission test in the spring of 2026, was struck from behind on the platform of the number 7 train at the 90th Street Elmhurst Avenue station. He was returning home from a study group at the Flushing Meadows branch of the Queens Library. He was wearing his Queens College sweatshirt, the same one he is wearing now. The man who struck him was a 28-year-old citizen of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. He had entered the United States in May of 2023 through the southern border near Eagle Pass, Texas. He had been arrested 3 times in the city of New York, once for physical altercation in the Bronx in October of 2023, once for criminal possession of a dangerous item in Queens in March of 2024, once for an altercation with a police officer in Brooklyn in November of 2024. On each of those 3 arrests, the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency filed a written detainer request with the New York City Department of Correction. On each of those 3 arrests, the New York City Department of Correction released the man without notifying ICE, in compliance with the New York City sanctuary policy that the Congresswoman has publicly defended on the floor of the United States House of Representatives in the years 2019, 2021, and 2023. On the 18th of May, 2025, that man struck my son from behind with a heavy object. My son fell forward onto the platform. The man struck him again and again. He stopped only when a man named Mr. David Chen, a 51-year-old maintenance supervisor from Flushing, pulled him off and held him down until the New York Police Department arrived. My son was hospitalized for 17 days at New York Presbyterian, Queens. He has been a resident at the Burke Rehabilitation Hospital in White Plains, New York, since the 11th of June, 2025. He cannot speak more than 3-word sentences. He has frontal lobe damage. He has not returned to Queens College. He will not take the medical college admission test. Between the 20th of May, 2025, and the 5th of February, 2026, I called the Congresswoman's district office 7 times. I asked each time for one thing. I asked for a meeting. I am the Congresswoman's constituent. My son is the Congresswoman's constituent. I have voted for her 4 times. I asked for one meeting. I received 7 form letters. Each one was signed by a person whose name I did not recognize. None of them was the Congresswoman. Mr. Vice President, I am not asking for an apology. I am not asking for the Congresswoman's resignation. I am not asking for money. The man who harmed my son is gone. The state of New York charged him. He was released on bail on the 23rd of May. He has not been seen since. The Lord and the agency will deal with that. In that order, I am asking, and I am asking only this, that the next time the Congresswoman from my district stands on the floor of the United States House of Representatives and says the words, "Abolish ICE," she remembers that the men her policy released walked the same. Number 7 train my son walked. That's all I came to say, Mr. Vice President. I yield. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tried to speak. Mr. Chairman, I object to the relevance. Chairman Scott, Madam Congresswoman, the witness has not finished. You are not recognized. I am finished, Mr. Chairman, Maria said. Then the chair excuses Mrs. Velez with the gratitude of this task force. Hector had not moved his eyes from the seal of the United States. He had not moved them, that anyone in the room could tell, since the hearing began. Maria just told her story to the United States Congress. Under oath, face to face with the woman whose policy her son's attacker walked free under. She did not ask for revenge. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for an apology. She just wanted the American people to know. If Hector deserves to have been heard before the cameras turned off, even though he could not say a single word, share this video right now to one person. Your son, your daughter, the young man at your corner bus stop in the Queens College sweatshirt. Right now. Chairman Scott looked down at his agenda. The chair recognizes, on a point of personal privilege concurrent with the jurisdiction of this task force, the gentleman from the state of New York, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. The chair grants him 1 minute. Representative Espaillat stood up from the 3rd row of observer seats. He was 71 years old. He wore a charcoal gray suit and a small Puerto Rican flag pin on his lapel. His constituents in New York's 13th congressional district were predominantly Dominican, but his neighbors on West 186th Street in Washington Heights had been Puerto Rican for 40 years, and he had worn the pin to the swearing-in of every Puerto Rican mayor of the city of New York since Fernando Ferrer's primary run in 2005. He was holding a small, worn Bible his father had given him in 1971, the year he overstayed a tourist visa and entered the United States as the man we now call an undocumented immigrant. He spoke slowly. He did not look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice President, I am a Democrat. I am the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I am a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. I am a senior whip of the House Democratic Caucus. I represent New York's 13th Congressional District, which sits adjacent to and shares city blocks with the district represented by the gentlewoman from New York to my left. I am not here this morning to defend the Vice President. I voted against his confirmation as a senator from Ohio in 2023. I have voted against the legislation he has sponsored. I will continue to vote against his administration on most matters. I am here, Mr. Chairman, because of what Mrs. Velez just said. I came to this country in 1965. I came on a tourist visa. I overstayed it. I was, for a time, a long time, what my colleagues now call an undocumented immigrant. I am the first formerly undocumented immigrant ever elected to the United States House of Representatives. The men and women of the Hispanic Caucus elected me in November of 2024, unanimously, to represent them on these matters. I am going to say something now that I do not expect to be popular with my own caucus this afternoon. There is a difference, Madam Congresswoman, between the man who comes to this country to work, to put his children through Queens College, the way my mother put me through Queens College in 1973, and the man who struck Hector Velez on the platform of the number 7 train. There is a difference between fighting for the dignity of the migrant and giving cover to the violent. Hector Velez is in row 4 in a wheelchair in his Queens College sweatshirt because we, and I include myself in this, we, Madam Congresswoman, I do not exempt myself, failed to make that difference clearly enough. He turned. He faced her. Hermana, sister, I am asking you, not as a member of the opposition, but as the chairman of the caucus you and I both belong to look at Mrs. Velez one time before this hearing ends and to say something. The word sorry is not required. The phrase te veo would be enough. Pause. She did not turn. Her papers were still on the floor. Mr. Chairman, I yield with sorrow. He sat down. Senator John Fetterman raised his hand. Chairman Scott recognized him. He stood up. 6 feet 8 inches. The dark gray suit jacket, the only one he owned, sat slightly tight at the shoulders. He had bought it 3 weeks earlier at the Macy S. at South Hills Village Mall in Pittsburgh, specifically for this hearing, because his wife, Giselle, had told him that on this particular day, in this particular room, he was going to want the jacket. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I am a Democrat. I am the senior senator from the state of Pennsylvania. I voted against most of the vice president's legislation when he served in this chamber. I have voted against most of his administration's confirmations, with the exceptions of Marco Rubio and Lori Chavez DeRemer. I will continue to vote against most of what this White House proposes for the rest of my term. I disagree with the vice president on the war in Ukraine. I disagree with him on Gaza. I disagree with him on Iran. I disagree with him on a great deal. I am not here, Mr. Chairman, to defend him. I am not here as a friend. I am here because I served as the mayor of a town called Braddock, Pennsylvania, from January of 2006 to January of 2019. The median household income in Braddock during my time as mayor was approximately $27,000 per year. 38% of the children in Braddock lived below the federal poverty line. My constituents, every single one of them, were the people the gentlewoman from New York calls the working class on her social media accounts. And I want to tell the gentlewoman from New York something on the record. On C-SPAN, in this room, this morning, he did not raise his voice. Working-class people in Braddock, Pennsylvania, do not stay at the Lansdowne Resort and Spa, ma'am. Working-class people in Braddock do not eat $150 one-four course tasting menus on Greenwich Avenue. Working-class people in Braddock do not bill $23,712 to a campaign committee for a venue rental at a stadium where Bad Bunny performs. Working-class people in Braddock, ma'am, called my office when I was mayor. I returned every call I could get to. When I could not return them, I sent a letter, a real letter, with my own signature, not a rubber stamp. I am not going to pretend, ma'am, that the working-class people of this country sent you to Washington to do what you did this past year. They did not. They sent me to Washington with the same expectation, ma'am, and I have failed them at it more times than I am proud of. But I have not failed them with their money. Not one time. I yield, Mr. Chairman. He sat down. Russell 325 was silent. It was not the silence of a gasp. It was quieter than that. It was the silence of recognition. A Democrat, the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and another Democrat, the senior senator from Pennsylvania, the man who has worn a hoodie on the Senate floor for the last 18 months, just stood up in a Republican-led Joint Task Force hearing and told Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the record, in real time, that working-class people do not live the way her donors had been paying for her to live. If you have been waiting your entire adult life for politicians to put country over party right there on C-SPAN with the cameras rolling, two of them from her own party, on her own side of the aisle, turn on your notifications right now. Subscribe. Notifications on, because next week, another hearing room. Another truth. Chairman Scott, the Vice President of the United States, is recognized for the balance of his time. Vice President Vance did not stand. A Vice President presiding does not stand. He had 2 minutes and 43 seconds left on his original allotment. He used 1 minute and 58 seconds. Madame Congresswoman, I'm going to do something the gentleman from New York asked you to do, ma'am, and I want you to forgive me for it, because I think it's the only thing left in me to do. I want you to know, ma'am, that I see you. I know you came to this town in January of 2019. I know what it cost you. I know you walked into a building full of men who had been here for 30 years and who decided before you ever said a word that you were a fool. I know what it took to face them down. I know you have been threatened. I know you have been searched for in the corridors of the Capitol on the 6th of January, 2021. I know you have been called names in this chamber that no woman in this chamber should ever be called. I'm not pretending none of that happened, ma'am. It did. It counts. But that was a while ago now. He paused. He spoke more quietly. And what I want to know, and what I think Mrs. Velez wants to know, and what Hector wants to know in whatever language he has left to him, and what Chairman Espaillat wants to know, and what Senator Fetterman wants to know, and what a whole lot of working folks in Corona, and Jackson Heights, and Long Island City, and the South Bronx want to know, is what happened somewhere along the way between you and them. You came from the Bronx, ma'am. You ran on the train every working person in your district takes. You ran against a man named Joseph Crowley, who had been here 20 years, and you said he had forgotten what the Bronx looked like, and what the working class of your district wants to know, ma'am, what my mama, Bonnie Vance of Middletown, Ohio, would have wanted to know if she were still alive, is when you stopped riding that number 7 train. When did you stop, ma'am? I'll tell you when. Somewhere between the Met Gala dress and the Vidara Hotel, and the Lansdowne Resort, and the Coliseo de Puerto Rico, and Sushi Noz on Greenwich Avenue. Ma'am, they sent you to Washington to fight, Madam Congresswoman. He paused for one breath. They sent you to fight. You sent them the bill. The 2 pages of paper were still on the marble floor. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stood up. "Mr. Chairman, I will not be lectured." Chairman Scott gavelled once. "Madam Congresswoman, you are out of order." "I am not out of order. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I have spent 7 years in this Congress." 2 gavels. "Reclaiming my time." Vice President Vance, Madam Congresswoman, with respect, ma'am, the gentlewoman is the witness today. The gentlewoman does not control the time. The chair does. With your permission, Mr. Chairman. Granted, Mr. Vice President. I will not be silenced. I have spent 3 gavels. The wood of the gavel cracked against the brass plate. Chairman Scott, Madam Congresswoman, the chair is going to ask the senator from Massachusetts, the senior Democrat present in this room, whether the minority has any objection to a motion to suspend the witness for the remainder of this morning. He turned. He looked at Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had endorsed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2018, who had campaigned with her in the South Bronx in 2020, who had appeared with her at 3 progressive caucus retreats since 2023, did not stand. She did not lift a finger. She said in a voice that the C-SPAN microphones almost did not catch, "Mr. Chairman, the senator from Massachusetts has no objection to the chair's discretion." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez turned slowly toward Senator Warren. Senator Warren did not turn back. She turned slowly toward Adriano Espaillat. Espaillat did not turn back. She turned toward Pramila Jayapal, the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the woman who had eaten dinner at her apartment in Washington 43 times in 7 years. Pramila Jayapal looked down at her hands. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's hands came down to the witness table. She did not pick up the papers from the floor. She said very quietly, quietly enough that the C-SPAN microphones almost did not catch it, "I yield." Chairman Scott tapped his gavel once, very gently. The witness yields. The task force will recess for 30 minutes. He set the gavel down. When the task force returned, the witness chair was empty. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had left Russell 325 through the side door that led to Constitution Avenue, alone, without speaking to a single reporter in the hallway, without issuing a statement, without looking back at the room she had just walked out of. The 2 pages of paper were still on the marble floor. A junior Senate staffer named Camila Rodriguez, 23 years old, from Hialeah, Florida, in her first month on the job, picked them up at 1247 that afternoon. After the afternoon panel had concluded, the pages were blank. Even her own progressive caucus chair would not turn her head to defend her. Even Senator Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren would not lift a finger. If you have been waiting your entire adult life to see what real accountability looks like across party lines, on the public record, on C-SPAN, turn on your notifications and subscribe right now, because next week, another hearing, another room, another truth. Somewhere on East 230th Street in the Bronx, at 4:11 that afternoon, Maria wheeled her son Hector back through the entrance of the Burke Rehabilitation Hospital. His occupational therapist, a young woman from Yonkers named Amanda Roosevelt, asked Hector how the morning had been. Hector did not speak for a long time. Then he said 2 words. "She came." Amanda Roosevelt wrote the words down on his chart. Somewhere in Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery, at 3:14 inches the afternoon Eastern Time, Vice President Vance, alone, no Secret Service photographer permitted, knelt beside the white marble headstone of Lance Corporal Dustin Lee, killed en route Tampa north of Baghdad on the 7th of October, 2006. He did not say his Marine's name out loud. He had stopped doing that 19 years ago, on the advice of a chaplain at Camp Pendleton who had understood that some prayers are better kept silent. He laid one hand on the stone. He left it there for 2 minutes. Somewhere on Dyckman Street in the Inwood neighborhood of Upper Manhattan, at 5:53 that evening, Adriano Espaillat sat on a bench at Inwood Hill Park and looked out at the Hudson River. He had a small, worn Bible in his hands. The Bible his father had given him in 1971, the year his father had pressed $60 American into his palm at the airport in Santo Domingo and told him he would not see him again until the boy was a man. He read the 7th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. He read the verse where the Lord asks, "Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?" He read it again. He did not cry. He had cried in November of 2021 when his father passed. He had not cried since. Somewhere on Library Avenue in Braddock, Pennsylvania, at 6:28 Eastern Time, Senator John Fetterman walked into the Braddock Carnegie Library, which he had personally restored when he was mayor, and sat down in the children's reading room. He took off the suit jacket. He put on his hoodie. He picked up the library's only copy of Hillbilly Elegy by James David Vance. He read the first chapter. He had never read it before. Somewhere in the East Walnut Hills neighborhood of Cincinnati, Ohio, at 7:04 Eastern Time, Vice President Vance walked into his front parlor. Usha was waiting with a glass of water. His daughter Mirabelle, 3 years old, named for Mama Bonnie, climbed onto his lap. His son Vivek brought a picture book. Vance read it to him. He did not turn on the television. The hearing did not need to be relived. When Mirabelle asked, "Daddy, you tired?" Vance said, "A little, kiddo." Mirabelle said, "Mama used to say tired is just tomorrow's job." Vance said, "She did, honey." He kept reading. Within 72 hours, Mike Casca, the chief of staff to Representative Ocasio-Cortez, resigned. His statement, distributed to political reporters at 6:08 a.m. on a Saturday morning, did not mention the hearing, did not mention Maria Vez, named no one. Within a week, Representative Pramila Jayapal stepped down as chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, citing personal health reasons. Her replacement, Representative Greg Casar of Texas, declined to comment on the events of the Joint Task Force hearing when asked by Politico's Sarah Ferris. Within a week, Adriano Espaillat appeared on the Univision news program Al Punto with the journalist Jorge Ramos. Ramos asked him whether he regretted his statement in Russell 325. Espaillat said in Spanish, "For my familia, no. For Hector, no. For my family, no. For Hector, no." He did not say it twice. Within 2 weeks, the Federal Election Commission's Office of General Counsel formally accepted the National Legal and Policy Center's complaint and opened a matter under review. Dr. Brian W. Boyle's attorney, Margaret Cleary of Boston, Massachusetts, issued a statement in which she said the term leadership training had been suggested by a member of the Ocasio-Cortez campaign staff, not by Dr. Boyle, and that her client did not advertise such services because he did not provide them. Within a month, the Q1 2026 Federal Election Commission report from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for Congress disclosed 0 new luxury hotel disbursements. Within 3 months, on the 2nd of August, 2026, Representative Ocasio-Cortez issued a statement announcing that she would not enter the 2028 presidential race. Her statement, released by her acting chief of staff at 6:41 a.m. on a Saturday morning, did not mention the hearing, did not mention Maria, did not mention Hector, did not mention Adriano Espaillat, did not mention John Fetterman, did not mention the vice president, named no one. She did not seek a televised farewell address. She did not request a Brookings Institution honorary fellowship, though one had reportedly been offered. She did not publish the campaign memoir she had reportedly been working on. Within 6 months, Senator Fetterman introduced, with formal endorsement from Vice President Vance on behalf of the Trump administration, the Federal Office Ethics Act of 2026. The bill required real-time Federal Election Commission disclosure of all member campaign expenditures over $1,000. It passed the Senate 73-21 on the 14th of October, 2026. 26 Democrats voted yes. Hector began to recover. By November of 2026, he could speak in 5-word sentences. He began rehabilitation, reading therapy. The book his mother had selected, on the recommendation of his speech therapist, was a used hardcover copy of Hillbilly Elegy, which she had purchased at the Strand Books outlet on Broadway in Manhattan for $8.50. Hector read the dedication out loud, slowly, to Amanda Roosevelt on the morning of the 17th of November, 2026. The dedication read, "For Mama and Papa, my very own hillbilly terminators." It took him 46 seconds to read it. He did not stop in the middle. If you made it this far, thank you. 3 things before you close this video. 1. Hit that like button. YouTube shows this video to more people when you do. And more Americans, working Americans, forgotten Americans, Americans who have spent 7 years watching what you just watched, need to hear what happened in Russell 325 this morning. 2. Comment the word accountability below. One word, ACCOUNTABILITY. Because this morning, in the same hearing room where Senator Sam Ervin once asked President Nixon S-men what they knew and when they knew it, somebody finally showed us what the word actually looks like. I read every comment. The top comments get pinned. Comment accountability now. 3. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week, another hearing, another politician, another truth that has been waiting its turn patiently for somebody brave enough to call it. God bless Mrs. Maria Lourdes Velez of Corona, Queens. God bless her son Hector, 22 years old, who watched the seal of the United States of America above the dais this morning because he had not yet found the words to say what he had come to say. God bless Mr. David Chen of Flushing, who pulled the man off Hector on the platform of the number 7 train, and who has not been thanked publicly until this morning. God bless Chairman Adriano Espaillat of New York, who came to this country on a tourist visa in 1965 and told the truth across 30 years of friendship, when the truth was the harder road. God bless Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who put on a suit jacket for the first time in 18 months because some mornings call for one. God bless Lance Corporal Dustin Lee of Quitman, Mississippi, who lost his life en route Tampa on the 7th of October, 2006, and is remembered every day since by a Marine who was not with him. And God bless every American in every forgotten zip code of this country who has ever called a representative's office and gotten a form letter while the representative was at a hotel her donors paid for. The gavel fell, the room emptied, the papers stayed on the floor, and the working class, who had sent her to fight, finally got the bill.